Hello and welcome back to Bite Size Boxing. So today I'm going to be doing my breakdown and prediction of Oleksandr Usyk versus Daniel Dubois 2, taking place this Saturday at Wembley Stadium. Now, I'll be frank, I have just done a full breakdown with a massive introduction for both fighters, but I looked at the total video and it was 17 minutes just for the introduction of both fighters themselves. And as a small channel, I'm going to be frank, retention-wise, it's just not going to do very good views. It's just not going to do very good numbers. People aren't interested on clicking on a video of a stranger and watching a near 30-minute breakdown. So I'm going to make a shorter, more concise version where I talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of both fighters. I'll touch a little bit on what brought us to this point, but really not with too much sort of in-depth detail because I don't think it necessarily needs it. Most of the people who are going to be watching this will be familiar with the sort of fighters themselves and what's got us to this point anyway. So let's begin. So stylistically, of course, we have already seen this fight before, and it was an interesting mesh of styles. Now, one thing you'll notice is that Usyk's foot movement is a lot more precise than Dubois. Now, Dubois has a good bounce to his step, and he has got relatively good feet for such a big man, but Usyk's is, of course, better. It's far more coordinated. It's far more sort of fleet of foot as well. He's quicker to cover the ground. And if you notice in that first fight, Dubois, as he's sort of taking steps like this, Usyk's almost taking steps like this, and he can sort of pivot on his toes a lot better than Dubois can, who's a lot more flat-footed. Now that means that he's able to kind of, what he does is while he's doing this, he fences with his lead hand, of course. Oleksandr Usyk is somebody who really, his whole style is based upon having lead hand control. And so he can fence with that lead hand, and then he can use that little sort of dainty foot movement in and out to point score and to basically keep you guessing. You see, this is something that Dubois struggled with massively first time, is that you get exhausted from Oleksandr Usyk. It's not anything he's doing in there. It's not like he's hitting you to the body consistently and wearing you down that way. No. It's the little nuances and everything you're having to constantly think of with Oleksandr Usyk that wears you down. Tony Bellew mentioned this. He said he'd never been more exhausted in a fight than he was about 7 rounds in with Usyk. And he said he was far more exhausted, at the midway point of that fight with Usyk than he had been in most other fights, if not every other fight, by the 12th. And that is because Usyk keeps you constantly thinking. It's those little small movements. He's constantly fencing, he's constantly probing, he's constantly keeping you guessing. And I've sparred people who are, of course, nowhere at the levels of Oleksandr Usyk, but I can think of one guy I used to spar that would always keep his right hand cocked. And he would kind of almost feint with the right hand as if he was going to throw it, and he would constantly keep that cocked, constantly keep it on guard. And then if you drop your sort of awareness for a second, you got cracked with that right hand. And Oleksandr Usyk is very similar. He sets traps and he keeps you constantly guessing, which is so mentally fatiguing. Now, of course, in that first fight, Daniel Dubois did have success of some description. He hit him with the questionable low blow / body shot, which I will start off by saying, when I watched it live, I thought it was legitimate. When I saw the replays, I'll be fair, it does look like a low blow. That being said, Usyk was definitely hurt. Usyk definitely milked it. Usyk definitely doesn't like it to the body. We've seen that in the amateurs for the first time against Beterbiev, and we've also seen him in other fights, namely the AJ fight actually a couple of times, and also in the mid-rounds against Fury, where when he was getting peppered to the body, you could see the poker face that Usyk normally has does drop. So there is no doubt that Usyk is a little bit more vulnerable to the body than most fighters, but again, it's a case of getting to the body. Dubois isn't a prolific body puncher. Dubois isn't somebody who is constantly, going to body to head, changing the levels. That isn't Daniel Dubois. In fact, that's more Oleksandr Usyk. So, again, Daniel Dubois is somebody who likes to headhunt a little bit more, which doesn't necessarily play into his strengths in this fight. So it's an interesting one because when you look at the people who have had success against Oleksandr Usyk, it's people like Derek Chisora, who in those first 3 rounds roughed up Usyk and gave him all he could handle. And I would say those sort of first 3 rounds was the most ruffled we've ever seen Usyk. He looked very flustered. Derek Chisora went about it like a bull in the china shop. He showed no respect to Usyk. He wasn't trying to stand off and box him like AJ was doing or Fury was doing at points. He took it to him and he went, I'm going to make this a big man fight and I'm going to make you feel small. Now, Fury had a bit more success namely in that first fight where he did try and make it more of a big man fight, which is something that AJ didn't do. So Fury, particularly in those middle rounds, he was starting to pepper Usyk to the body, started to move him around, and was doing well as leading off of that jab and taking, making level changes from body to head, and that was having good success against Usyk. Now, in my opinion, the only way that Daniel Dubois can win this fight is if he rushes Usyk early. Now, this isn't something he did in the first fight. In the first fight, he was very standoffish. He respected Usyk too much. But again, as I said earlier, all of that constant feinting and movement is what causes you to second guess yourself and causes you to be standoffish. It's all well and good us saying, right, he just needs to go in and rush him. Go in and do it then, because many people have tried to do that and only Chisora has had limited success, and that was only for a couple of rounds. So it's a difficult one because, in my opinion, Dubois won't do that. I think Dubois will do similar to what he did last time, where in much of the fight he is standing off. He is trying to sort of box his way in a little bit behind the jab. Now, don't get it twisted, Dubois has a fantastic jab, but I think that is completely the wrong strategy. I think you should be a ball in the china shop. You should throw risks. You should risk gassing out and getting knocked out, because that is what will happen to Dubois. Make no mistake about it. If Dubois gambles, if he throws caution to the wind early, if he lets his shots go, if he goes, look, this is a 3-round fight, if it gets out of those first 3 or 4 rounds, he's in big trouble and he's getting knocked out. Will Dubois want to do that? Probably not, which is why, just going into this fight, I'll be frank, I see this as being a distance fight. I think the smart money so far in my head is on Usyk on points. I can see Usyk dancing around Dubois. I can see a very similar kind of fight as the first one, to be honest, except Usyk doesn't get hit with a body shot this time, and I can see him just taking it long, taking it on points. I don't think Dubois will get stopped this time. The only way in my mind that Dubois does get stopped is if he makes the same mistakes as last time. But again, there is every chance that, Dubois gasses out again, because even in that first fight, he wasn't taking crazy amounts of risks. He started to gamble more after he landed the body shot, and then that caused him to gas out, and then that caused him to get stopped. It also didn't help that he was biting on feints constantly from the first round, and he was constantly mentally fatigued as much as he was physically fatigued. I think all that Dubois can do in this fight is he throws all of the boxing out the window, and from the first round he doesn't allow Usyk to establish his distance. He doesn't allow him to start establishing his range with his jab. He needs to go in there and literally make it an inside fight from the word go, because if you go and watch that first fight from the very start, he's being quite tentative, Usyk's fencing, Usyk's bouncing in and out, and from the very first second you're watching that, and I remember watching at the time and went, okay, he's lost this. I knew that Dubois had lost in the first 30 seconds. He cannot afford to do that again. He just has to rush Usyk and gamble. And look, what chance does that give him realistically? Maybe a 30% chance, 35% chance, something like that in my mind. And then if it doesn't happen, which is likely it won't, he then gets stopped. So as I say, I don't think he'll want to do that. I think he will be a bit more cute than last time. I think he probably will stand off, but I think he will be a bit more wary of what Usyk can do. He's obviously been in there with him. So I'm not sure if he'll be biting on feints quite to the extent as he was last time. I think he's shown a lot of growth. Of course, we had the Miller fight, we had the Hrgovic fight, the Joshua fight, etc. And so he's shown a lot of growth mentally, and he's definitely matured as a man and as a fighter. So I think he'll be more nuanced in the ring than he was last time. But it is just a case of whether he'll be able to hold it together for the full 12 if it does go that long, because he will be fatigued. He will get worn down if he just tries to stand off and box Usyk. And unfortunately, I think that's what he'll do. In my mind, I kind of conceive this being quite a boring and soporific affair, if I'm honest. I think you're going to have Dubois being quite tentative, being wary of what's coming up back, because of course last time when he got stopped, it was because he was knackered. He was trying to cover the right-hand side, so he's getting hit from the left. He's trying to cover the left, so he's getting hit from the right. He's trying to cover down the middle, so he's getting hooked around the sides. And he was basically just getting peppered from every direction. He took a knee and he decided that no mass, he'd had enough. So he doesn't want a repeat of that. So the only way that he can ensure that that doesn't happen is by, in my mind, not doing a lot and really respecting Usyk and giving Usyk too much respect. That being said, Usyk has definitely shown slippage. I don't think he's quite the fighter that we saw even in the first Dubois fight, especially not the one that we saw in the Joshua fights. So I think Usyk has slowed down slightly. I don't think he's quite got that same dynamism, and he's not quite as bouncy and sort of on his, on his toes, and he's not as sprightly as he once was, is the point I'm trying to make. That being said, he's more sprightly than Dubois now, even still. So I think he's going to have too much for Dubois still, I think. I think, unfortunately, this is probably not going to be the most entertaining affair. I can see that. Sometimes you just have that feeling going into a fight that there's going to be drama. And I don't know what it is. In my bones, I just don't feel that for this one. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're going to see on my post-fight me jumping out, can't believe what I've just seen, because, we've just seen him getting, we've just seen Usyk get knocked out in 3 and Dubois is now undisputed. Maybe that's what will happen. Oh, move the camera. But I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately. I don't think that's what we will see happen. I don't think Dubois will have I don't think he will be prepared to put it all on the line the way he needs to be honest, because if he is to have any chance of winning in my mind, he has to make this a 3-round fight. Chisora was prepared to do that, but Chisora just wasn't good enough to do that. I think Dubois can use the similar kind of tactics as Chisora, but I just don't think he has it upstairs, to be frank, to do that. I don't think he does. I don't think he wants to risk getting knocked out, in the mid to late rounds again, or having to quit because he's exhausted. I don't think he wants to go there again. So in my mind, I think this goes late. I think Usyk takes us on points. But what say you? What do you think? You let me know. I'd be very, very interested to know. The next time you see this, I will be, I'm away, I'm going to be on a trip. So this backdrop, this kind of look is not going to be quite as professional. I'll probably be holding a camera or something, so do forgive me for that, but I will still be producing content. I will still be giving you post-fight analysis and reaction, probably weigh-in reaction as well. But you let me know what you think. You let me know how you see this fight going and what little nuances that you think I should be looking out for as well. I'll be very interested to know. You take care, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.